I was reading, worked my way through the history books in the Old Testament, and then I'll go back and work my way through them again, just a page at a time. And so I'm in Joshua right now, and I read a passage yesterday that I hadn't noticed before. And the setting is that they've already, Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho. So they already had the battle, and then defeated the kings, basically conquered the land, basically conquered it. And so now it's time to do what all families love to do, divide up the stuff, right? So there are 12 tribes, so they're going to get their land allotments. So they're the covered wagons. They come up to the line, and they're 16. And so I'm looking at verse 14 and the verses following that, where Joshua is addressing the tribe of Joseph, and he's told them what their allotment is. And so 16. Joshua, 17. 17, 14. Sorry about that. So I never really noticed before that they don't like what they get. I mean, I don't know what that's. I don't identify with that. I always get what I like. Don't you? So, so they don't like what they get. And so it says, then the sons of Joseph spoke to Joshua, saying, this is hard to read because it's hard to read complaint. It was easy for years to complain and to listen to people complain. And when you stop doing that and you know that you can't do it anymore, you don't really want to do it because you're just going to have to turn around and stop. So why start what you're going to have to stop? And then when other people are doing it, you're thinking, oh my gosh, poor you, where can this go? But they say, why have you given me only one lot and one portion for an inheritance, since I am a numerous people whom the Lord has thus far blessed? Now, the tribe of Joseph really was, Joseph had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And so, in a way, though they're is one tribe, or the son of Joseph, it's in a sense, we're looking at two sons. Now, Manasseh, half of the tribe of Manasseh had received its land allotment because Gad and Reuben and half of the tribe of Manasseh liked the land to the side of the Jordan before they went in to conquer. So I think they were moving from east to west, and they liked that land over on the east side of the Jordan. And Moses said, you guys are, at first he thought, you guys are way out of line here because you're thinking you're going to stay over here and the other 9.5 tribes are going to go in, and you know what? He said, that ain't going to happen. And they said, no, that wasn't in our mind at all. We're going with you. We're going to march every march, fight every battle, sweat every drop, and when it's all over, we'll take our leave and go back, but we like that land over there. And he said, well, okay, then that'll work. So that left in this apportioning of the land, then the other half tribe of Manasseh, and then the tribe of Ephraim, right? So they're not happy with their allotment. And Joshua says, And I never, what I had, I had never noticed how kind of tart his response is. He says, well, if you're a numerous people, go up to the forest and clear a place for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaim, since the hill country of Ephraim is too narrow for you. So in other words, they had a narrow strip, and to the north of this narrow strip was this large forest. And so then he also says, and the sons of Joseph said, the hill country's not enough, because the Canaanites live in the valley, and they have chariots of iron, both those who are in Beth Shean and its towns, and those who are in the valley of Jezreel. So now they say, you know, it's not big enough because the Rephaim are to the south of our little narrow strip of land, and they've got these iron chariots. So now Joshua has to come back and answer them again, and he says, you are a numerous people and have great power. You shall not have one lot only, but the hill country shall be yours. For though it is a forest, you shall clear it, and to its farthest borders it shall be yours. For you shall drive out the Canaanites, even though they have chariots of iron, though they are strong. And when I read this, I think, it doesn't sound like he gave them much more, but he told them they were much more. But think about this for a second. When they say, we're the sons of Joseph and we've been blessed up to now, their thinking is, if you're blessed, you get the easiest situation. Maybe they thought they were going to get a bigger piece of land, or that when Joshua mentioned the forest, that the other tribes would say, oh, hey, we'll come in and clear it for you and build a subdivision, and then you can just come move in. Or, we'll put off everything, all our battles and our territories, and we'll all come, help you deal with the iron chariot situation. In a way, we've all heard the cliche, there's strength in numbers. And in a sense, that's true. They had been a marching army, a corporate group, and there is power in that. And now they were dividing into 12 subgroups that were going to be one nation, but loosely aligned, not a big federal government. As when Ron was reading the historical poetic narrative that he wrote and read, he pointed out, all of a sudden I've gone blank. I was thinking about what Ron said and I forgot what I was saying here. Was it about the king taking? Right, the king. He had the part in there. Thank you. Well, powerless. This is so great. Yes, they had not arrived at the time yet when they were going to have the centralized federal government with taxation and a continued conscripted army. The idea of this union was not a continually ongoing one large federal entity, but the 12 tribes each going in and settling its own area and having a fellowship, a union fellowship, sort of like different, ministries, for example. People, that are out in different ministries, taking Christ to the world. They're all involved really in what each other are doing in a supportive spirit sense, but you start to see your task narrowed down, and it's not exactly the same task as the body politic was when it was all together. Because we're going to leave here Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, and you're going to go back to what? You're going to go back to what? You're going to go back to maybe what you think is a little narrow strip of ground, which is not enough, and it's got all this forest to the north and all these big guys with iron chariots to the south, and you're thinking, I don't have enough. I should have been given more. And, if you were a Rockefeller and you came along and you said, my father or my grandfather was Rockefeller, people would be impressed with that for about how long? And then they're going to say, but what are you doing? Because Rockefeller is as Rockefeller does. I mean, you can wear a name. You see, Joseph is as Joseph does. So they're saying we're sons of Joseph. So Joshua doesn't say, oh, well, my goodness, we're going to put you on a pension right away, and we're going to do everything for you. We're going to hire servants for you, and you're going to have a big ministry, and you're going to have a wine chef and a pastry chef and a meat chef and a gardener, and it's just instantly all going to just be right out there lavishly for you. We want you to just kind of sit back and relax because, hey, you're the sons of Joseph. No. When you tell somebody who your daddy was or your grandfather was or you knew this person or that person, that's good for about a minute or 5 minutes, but then it's that people want to see what do you got? How are you swinging the bat when the ball's coming in 95 miles an hour, or the next pitch is a 70-mile-an-hour changeup, or that slider is just dropping away and off the corner of the plate? What do you got? What are you bringing to this thing here? I mean, wow, this says Christianity isn't about sitting back and letting a few leaders do all the work, is it? No, because if there's a forest to be cut down, I mean, it's going to, probably a lot of people are going to have to be whacking away at those trees. Joshua, he's kind of tart here with this. And so it's a way of saying, if you're this, Joseph, it's a way of saying Joseph was Joseph and he had the hardest job. So if you're a Joseph, you don't get the easy job, you get the hard job. You get what looks like the unfair allotment that has some of the worst stuff you have to do to take it over and make it into something. You don't get the easy job, you get the hard job. But see, if you don't know that and you're not expecting that, then you think something's wrong about the idea of being blessed. Now, the next thing I was curious about with this was the Rephaim. I think these are the people that were giants. So I looked up Rephaim, and in Deuteronomy 3:11 it names one of them. Og, king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. Now Og was one of those kings to the east of the Jordan. There was Og and there was Sihon, and they were two of the early great victories for Israel, and they were under Moses before Moses went off in fulfillment of what the Lord had said to him. And so it was their country that Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh liked. So Og was one of those Rephaim. But listen, it says his bedstead, also translated couch, was an iron bedstead. Now, iron's pretty heavy, right? I mean, if you got iron, wood can be heavy. Hardwood can be heavy. You got a pine bed, maybe not so heavy. You got maple or oak, we're getting heavy. You get iron, that's a pretty big heavy bed. Now, this bed was 9 by 4. What do you think, 9 by 4? But it's 9 cubits by 4 cubits. A cubit is 1.5 feet. So a 9-cubit bed is 9 times 1.5. That's 9 plus 4.5. That's 13.5 foot long bed. That's a pretty big bed for a pretty big guy. And 4 cubits wide, that's 6 feet wide. Well, I mean, you know, I've slept in a queen-size bed and a king-size bed. I don't really need that much space. But I don't. But I don't ever remember a 13 and a half. A 13 and a half by a 6-foot bed for one guy that's made of iron. That's a big guy. That's a giant. See, that's one of those Rephaim. So I got to wondering about who else had to deal with Rephaim. And lo and behold, when we go back to Genesis 14, one of the most critical chapters in the history of the Old Testament, there to set things up a little bit more about this, I'm going to tracing the roots out here. There were Rephaim back in the time of Abraham, and I think he was Abram then. Let's see. Well, okay, he was Abram then. So Lot had chosen the lush area, right? I mean, Abram, my gosh, Abram is the man. Abram's the man. And he says to his immature nephew, Lot, you can choose. And Lot looks out, and he wants the greeny, grassy, lush, the best looking of the land, and leaves Abram the plainer looking area. And so Lot settles in Sodom. And Lot really wasn't too happy with Sodom. It kind of vexed him. It kind of wore him out. And it's good that it did. It wore him out. It grieved him. I mean, I really think it conditioned him and worked on him. You know, it's a good reason not to be jealous of people who live lavish, wrong lifestyles. Because, you know, if Lot had really been impure at his center, that's what he really would have loved. I mean, he loved a nice piece of land, you know, and the appealing place to live. Nothing wrong with that. Anybody can love that. I mean, there's nothing evil about what he looked at and thought was great and desired to have. What maybe was not so prudent was not showing deference to his uncle, who was, you know, the man of faith at this situation in biblical history. But so now there's these kings come and attack Sodom, and so that means Lot gets hauled off into captivity. Well, Abram could have thought, well, you know, choice has its consequences, right? I mean, how many people kind of do something that leaves you the short end, and then they get in trouble, and you could easily think, well, you grew it, you chew it, you know, well, that's a cliche I grew up with. I don't hear much anymore. You know, well, this was good for you. Be consequences. After all, Joseph's going to get sold into slavery. No one's going to rescue him, right? So, I mean, this is talk about the word grace. I mean, grace, I don't think there's any such thing as cheap grace. If it's cheap, it's not grace. It's grace. If there's anything grace isn't, it's cheap. If it's cheap, it's not grace. Grace has the cross at its center. So if it's real grace, it's got the cross at its center. And people, when they really start to see what they like it when it's coming to them, but when it's for you to extend it to others, it's whoa. I think Lot ought to get whooped up on a little more than this. I think he ought to have to pay. Right. I might come in behind him, and if I win the victory, I might, you know, I will have conquered that. It'll be mine then. I mean, you know, tempting to think all of that. So these kings have got Lot, and Abram is going to rise up and do something about this. But this guy, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Cheddar Laomer. I'll call it Cheddar Laomer. I'm probably butchering it. And he and the kings that were with him defeated the Rephaim. So Abraham has to go up against the king that has defeated the giants. So he's not just having to go do a hard thing. He's having to go against the guy that beat the guy that you didn't want to go against in the first place. This is not an easy task. And so Abram gets together his army, and he's got 318 trained men, which that's pretty amazing. You know, he's left his country, and he's a tent dweller, and he's increased his herds and his family, and somehow he's begun to multiply, but also probably draw some people of faith to him. And so he's got his 318 people, and he takes his forces by night, and he wins this battle, and he brings back all the goods, and he's got Lot, and lo and behold, this is where one of the, I think it's 3 times in the Bible that we hear of Melchizedek. And so Melchizedek comes to meet him and gives him the blessing. And Melchizedek represents a priesthood it's the priesthood really of Jesus. Jesus wasn't a priest in the Levitical sense. Jesus was a priest after the order of Melchizedek. And we find this expanded on more in Hebrews, where there's really pretty much a chapter about Melchizedek. And so he comes and he blesses Abraham. So obviously Abraham has entered into this priesthood of Melchizedek, or Melchizedek wouldn't be doing this. Melchizedek, see, God is drawn to people who have a certain kind of faith. I mean, when Jesus saw the faith of the centurion and the Canaanite woman, he was just drawn to them. I mean, just whoo! And so Abraham, having undertaken what he did in faith, on God's end, he said, "Whoa! Oh my gosh! I'm about tearing my hair out. Did you see what Abram has done? We are sending Melchizedek to him. Melchizedek must go. This is the highest order, the ultimate incredible priesthood, which will be the mystery unfolded. We'll talk about it briefly in Psalm 110, Spirit and pre-incarnate Son, and it'll come out in the book of Hebrews. We must get Melchizedek there immediately." And so Abraham's going along. He's not expecting. He doesn't even know there is a Melchizedek. And Melchizedek appears and gives him this blessing. He must have thought, I don't know what this was, but it was incredible. It's amazing. I met this guy named Melchizedek. I don't know what it is about him. Somehow he clicked with me. I'm not sure why. And I know I clicked with him. You know, like, whoa! Like unto like, you know. Oh. And so then Abraham's got all this stuff, so what's he going to do with it? And he doesn't want to keep the stuff. He says, I'm not going to take a thread or a sandal thong or anything that's yours, lest you say, now he's not saying this to Melchizedek, he's saying to the king of Sodom, because the king of Sodom, you know, when you get rescued, you kind of feel like, hey, you know, thanks for bailing me out, and by the way, you know, like, you know, the stuff you see here, well, obviously, you know, like, I mean, what do you want? Tell me, you know, name your price. I mean, I owe my life to you, right? Abram doesn't want any of it. Isn't that amazing? He wasn't like a lot of preachers I know. A lot of preachers I know are like, well, yeah. Or they're like the sons of Joseph and Joshua, like, yeah, like we're blessed. Like you're giving us this narrow little strip. It's not very big. You want us to have to work? You want us to have to clear the forest? You want us to have to go against Rephidim? Ah! All those big people with those iron chariots? No, we're blessed. See? No, if you're of Abraham, if you're of Joseph, if you're of David, if you're of Jesus, you don't get the easy stuff. You get the hard stuff. You know, when I read this, I have laryngitis by bedtime. I thought one reason it hit me is I thought, wow, yes, once again, you know, God's faithful reminder, because you get to doing what you're doing and you think, you know, I'm working in my area. This is the area that was apportioned to me. Because, see, Joshua really is a figure of Jesus. The book of Hebrews says that, right? It says if Joshua had given them rest, we wouldn't have Jesus. So Jesus is the real Joshua. So Jesus apportions the land, and He gives you part of it. Like Margaret this morning was talking about Martinsville, Virginia, in Gray County? Henry County. All right, so she has been apportioned an area. It's not the only area of interest for her, but it's her local area. And from what she said, there's been a lot of tree clearing and a lot of iron chariots in Rephidim. I mean, has there not been a forest there to be cleared? Have there not been 13-foot iron beds with preachers lying in them? And you think I've got to go, I'm a housewife! Right? You know? So we get into our local area and we're thinking, wow, gosh, this is so slow, it's so tough, it's so hard. Did I really hear you right, Joshua? This was what I'm to have? Did I really hear you right, Lord Jesus? This is what I'm to have? And he repeats it. And maybe he's even tart about it. Yes, you did hear me right. I don't, bless the people that stutter. I don't mean any disrespect, but he's saying I said it pretty clearly. This is what it is. You are where you're supposed to be. And the obstacles are not a sign of lack of favor. So let's talk about Joseph for a minute. He started out with this respectfully, the golden boy. He was the golden boy. And that coat was wonderful. That coat, that many-colored coat, represents the glory of God in all its splendor and colors. And it's built on the cross. And Joseph walked out every inch of the cross to show that he was the man to have had that coat and have it again. And so he didn't get the easiest way, he got the hardest way. And so sometimes when I'm thinking, it seems awfully, am I making this harder than it is? I mean, it's a fair question to ask ourselves sometimes because, am I making this harder than it is? Not necessarily unbelief, don't mean that. But, there are easier ways or more efficient ways. We'll say to the Lord, I'm trusting you show the efficient way of doing this. And it comes down, no, this really is as challenging as it appears. And so here we are, and we look back and we think about what we have and what we're trying to do, and by faith, of course, and how things have gone, and what the obstacles are. And there are two ways to look at it. You can say, "Oh my goodness, I get to do this." See, you can look at it like I have to do this, or you can look at it like, "Oh my goodness, I get to do this." And what a privilege. And so, why not? Why not have it be like this? So that's really what. So to make to tie it, how is it though that you press on through and do it? And remember, when you clear the forest, one of the exciting things about it is that you can do with those trees what you want. You're not going to throw the trees away, are you? I mean, you can make anything you want out of them. It's like when I was a kid and I got a huge bag of Lincoln Logs. You know, there they were. You know, what are you going to do with the Lincoln Logs today? I mean, I've spent days and days and days and weeks and weeks and weeks making things out of the. We love to make things like the charm bracelets that Kathy held up. Somebody thought of that. Somebody made it. Somebody found all those little pieces. Somebody assembled it. Things that are a drudgery on the front end are the front end of your creativity. Things that are a drudgery on the front end are the front end of your creativity. You know, if it were easy, everyone would do it. They would. I mean, would that everyone would, but if it were easy, everyone would do it. And so they're going to get to do. They could say, "Wow, what a supply of wood!" And then we can landscape it, we can design it, we can lay out the lots, we can make cities, or we can, when you get into that end of it, pretty soon you're not thinking work. Sylvia talks about how Scotty never stops working. Well, why? Well, partly because it's not really work. I mean, it is work, but it's not. It has become your sport. Your work becomes your sport. And then, see, that was to the north of the strip of the land. To the south of the strip of land were the giants and the chariots. So there's always somebody bigger than I am, somebody always more powerful, somebody always smarter, somebody always savvier, somebody. And then there's the enemies in the mix with things. You know, I was bothered by something a couple of days ago, and I kept looking like, just negative. And I thought, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem like the ordinary run-of-the-mill negative. What is it? And I realized it's the devil. Oh my gosh! And as soon as I saw that, I thought, that's all it is. I thought, is that all it is? I was tempted for a minute to think there was some terrible screwed up thing that I had missed along the way. And by the way, I've heard Christian teaching about that when Israel went in to take the land, that they conquered it, but then they had to drive out all the pockets of the enemy. That's like the pockets of sin in you, or the pockets of the lies you still believe, or the pockets. That is not right. I was thinking about this today. I thought that cannot be right, because if you're one of these sons of Joseph, and you set out to cut down the trees you're supposed to cut down and attack the iron chariots you're supposed to attack, how is that some sin in you? How is that got the fact that there were pockets of the enemy still in the land had nothing to do with pockets of the enemy being in any of those people. But you know how a pocket of the enemy could get into one of the people? By not doing the job. That if they don't go cut down the trees, or they don't go after the iron chariots, then we can talk about unbelief entering in. But if I'm an Israelite, or I'm a Christian, and I'm trying to clear by faith, clear a land and take on enemies, how is that anything to do with something wrong in me? I don't buy it. I never really have bought it in a long time. For the last 18 years, whenever it would come up, I'd kind of scratch my head and I think, I know that there are Christians that believe lies. I believe lies. It's possible to believe lie, but no, that's not what this was about. The taking of the land and driving out the rest of the pockets of the enemy was not a picture of the Christian, and this is your Canaan, and you're going in and driving out the enemy that's still in you. I don't know. That cannot be what this is saying. Because if you're one of these sons of Joseph and you listen to Joshua and you hear his tart word and you say, okay, guys, it's time to get the saws and start cutting the trees by faith, or it's time to start see what the Lord's battle strategy is against the guys with the big iron chariots, how is that sin still in you? That doesn't compute. That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. God didn't. When I hit bottom, had I believed lies? Well, you bet. You bet. You bet I did. But when I saw really what the Scripture is what the Scripture is saying about what it means to be born again and who we are. When I saw it, had my awakening moment and decided to come on out of the birth canal and quit, being afraid of the devil and the world and life and people and myself. It wasn't anymore. I don't anymore believe He was saying, now you got all these lies in you and you pockets of them in there. You're basically okay, but go in and find these lies and drive them out. No. If you're believing a lie, you're believing a lie. But if you're on your mission of faith doing what God has given you to do, to me that is not a picture of some kind of progressive. No, I don't buy it. I'm sorry. So the exciting thing about this is that it's okay for things to be hard. I mean, if faith laughs at the impossible, then you expect impossible things. If you know that you live by miracle, somebody said that they talked about living by miracles today. Probably more than one. But if you know that living is living in a string of miracles, and it's always a miracle, then you have your moments of shock. You don't like some of the lay of the land at times of what you have to do, but when you stop and think about it, the Lord will hit you up with some word, maybe from the Bible, from somebody else, like, hey, what are you thinking what were you thinking it was going to be? What were you thinking it's going to be? It's pretty neat, isn't it? Isn't it pretty neat? And you start saying, pretty neat. Whoa. Well, yeah. Could be pretty neat. Well, is it just a terrible thing, or is it pretty neat? Pretty neat. Wow. I get to be the one to do that. Whatever it is that you're doing, you get to be the one to do that. And that to me is where the excitement is. And then you say, I can't believe I'm saying this. You say to yourself, I can't believe I'm saying this. You say, bring it on. Whatever it is. I don't know what the Lord, I know what He has at the moment. I don't know what lies ahead. I don't know that I need to know. But whatever it is, when the breaking news comes, that is it. That is what it is. And Joshua was pretty tart. I think he was a wise man. He knew what to say to them, and he didn't condemn them. He was tart, but he didn't condemn them. He said, "You've got the power. You've got the power." When I was a new ensign in the Navy, and I'd been around for a few months, and a lot of the enlisted guys that I was assigned to supervise, as their officer, had way more knowledge and experience than I did, and I just kind of was sort of pitiful, really, and pathetic for really my first year. In fact, in my first evaluation, the captain said Ensign Coatney is dependent on his senior enlisted people. That's not unusual to be, but it was dependent, like pathetically dependent. That was the gist of it. It was worded slightly not that blunt, but it was very clear. I read it and I thought, I knew, they think I'm pitiful. And I am pitiful. I was like Charlie Brown. Lucy had just eaten me alive. And I had let it happen. And this warrant officer who'd been in for 30 years, Joe Perugini, Italian guy, he caught me in the passageway one day. See, we call them hallways. In your couch, you call it a hallway. On a ship, you call it the passageway. He called me in the passage one day, and he said, Brian, he said, you've got that bar on your collar. You're an officer. He said, you have got more power than you realize, and you can use that power. See, and there was a kind of a friendly, paternal grief and love in what he said to me, and the whole thing stung me so bad. It really put me back into the scriptures and the Lord. I'd been kind of like, kind of kind of lukewarm, sort of half-baked Christian for a while. My troops didn't respect me, the fellow officers didn't respect me, the captain didn't respect me, and I thought, and what Joe Perugini said was part of like waking up and getting back, into the Word, into the Spirit, and I started to plant my feet and have some backbone. And at first, people like, well, who does Mr. Mush think he is? But it didn't really. After a while, if you stand up, whatever your situation is, even if you haven't been standing up, maybe it's in your marriage. I know when Tandy started to stand up, I thought, oh my gosh, did it have to all come at once? So like a backbone was seemingly like wow. But when you start standing up for what it is that you are called to stand up for, and you're not taking it from people like you used to take it from them. You're not trying to be vindictive toward them, or you're not trying to get back. You're not trying to prove how great you are. You're simply wearing and operating the authority of the one who has commissioned you for what you're doing. Norman used to call it operating the operator. And I would, in those days I thought, operate the operator. I can't even operate me. I mean, I can't even get myself really half the time or less than that to really believe who I am. And he's talking all this great stuff about operating the operator. But what did Joshua do? Joshua told them who they were. And he's the image, the type of Christ. So what is it that the Lord says to us? He gives us something to do, and we think, oh yeah, and we say, give him the reasons why it can't be done. Okay. Moses gave him God the reasons why he couldn't do it, and God says, well, we'll do this. I'll get you Aaron, and then finally, Moses reaches a certain point. God says, shut up, or you're really going to be in trouble. So Joshua says, shut up, or you're really going to be in trouble. And when I bolted up and sat upright and started to really see 18 years ago, it was reading about these things in the book of Hebrews expression of them, and God was very clear. He was saying you can be a little brat and threaten to kill yourself and whine and be depressed or want to be on medication or say you can't do what I've commissioned you to do, but I'm not budging. This is the way it is. It's my way, period. I don't negotiate. And I got it. I got it. It was, you have to know when something's non-negotiable. There are plenty of things with God that are negotiable. Moses negotiated when God said, well, I'm going to get rid of all of them, and we'll start over again with you. He negotiated. When Abraham wanted the cities not to be burned, Sodom, he negotiated. Well, if there are 50, if there are 40. There's a time when there's a wide open time to negotiate, and you can negotiate to the utmost, and God loves it. He wants you to. He's setting you up to do it. Kind of like, come on, bring it to me. You're afraid maybe you're challenging my authority, but I know that's not what you're about. You're really operating the operator. It's enough. But you have to know when something's non-negotiable. You have to know the difference between your negotiables and your non-negotiables. The negotiables are the things that are for others. You can go to war with God and negotiate and drive him into a corner for others. Because he says, wow, you're being like me. In fact, that is me. Woo! And I'm drawn to myself in you. I like what I see. But if it's a non-negotiable, you are, when Jeremiah got on non-negotiable terms, when things were so bad, he said, God, you're like a deceptive brook. And God said, no, we're not having that. You better drop that right now. We're not going on. No. That is a non-negotiable. Job, I hate the day I was born. I wish I'd never been born. Or, crazy insane about what the friends were saying, questioning a lot of things about why God was doing what He's doing. No problem, until he said to God, "You watcher men, you're unjust." He was started to say the same thing that Jeremiah said. It was like, that's it. We're not having that. We are not doing that. You can have your vent, blow your steam. You can negotiate with me when it's about others. And you can say a lot of things you like and don't like, and your frustrations. All that's fine. But once you start thinking that I'm really not for you, and I haven't really equipped you, then we can't go any farther. I got to get out the lightning and the thunders and the mountains and talk about the oceans and the stars and all that until you kind of get it again. So that's what I wanted to talk about, because it just is so great what Joshua said to him, and it's just like the Lord, because it was the Lord. That is His way with us. So, all right, thank you.